Mae Govannen, my Elven Fae and otherkin family. Today is a requested show for Elven Awakenings, chatting with the Elven Scholar. I had a request from a viewer, I believe, sorry if I get the name wrong, but the Light of the Jedi? I believe that was right, Light of the Jedi. Anyway, requested that I do a video on a zoocentric philosophy. In other words, in this case, what is the elves' relationship with animals, and how does it affect culture, our spirituality, and such? It's not just the elven relationship with nature in general, but our relationship with animals and how that affects, again, our spirituality. So we're going to talk about that today, and then towards the end of the video, I'll be doing my final thoughts. This is a really important one for me because I wanted to talk about one of the great impediments to realizing your true nature is to allow society to put you in a box, to give you titles and for you to accept them. So this is all going to be a pretty short video, but these are a couple of important topics. So we're going to talk about elven love of the animals and our spirituality and how not to be put into a box. All right, so if you guys are ready, let's go. Okay, so let's get into how animal beliefs and religions and so forth affect elven culture and elven spirituality. Before I do that, though, I think I need to make a few definitions here, or at least explain a few words so that we have some common ground here. We're going to talk about what is animalism versus humanism, and then we're going to talk about what a lot of the world's religions, how they spiritually view other animals, and then we're going to talk briefly how elves may look at it. And I know even there's going to be a great diversity of opinions there. I've noticed that over the years I've done this channel that some people get rather adamant about their beliefs. And again, as always, I hope that we can debate this with civility and not with emotions. All right, so let's go ahead and start. How about what exactly is a zoocentric philosophy? All right, one of the first things we do is define what is animalism. All right, in short, animalism is similar to humanism, but inclusive of all sentient animals. Humanism is a doctrine, attitude, or a way of life centered on human interests or values, especially a philosophy that usually rejects supernaturalism and stresses an individual's dignity and worth and capacity for self-realization for reason. Okay, a lot of words to say the human is the center of it all, and they're the most important thing. And their rights are the most important. Animalism, on the other hand, is a philosophical and ethical stance that emphasizes the value of all sentient beings. Animalism is similar to humanism, except that it does not exclude non-human sentient animals, simply because they don't belong to our species. Animalism promotes the consideration of the interests of all animals. An animalist considers the animals as individuals and as sentient beings able to feel physical pain. Animalism disputes the confusion between what it means to be a moral agent, in other words, a being who is capable of acting with reference to right and wrong, and a moral patient, and that means cannot formulate or follow moral principles and rules. Just because an animal is not a moral agent doesn't mean that it cannot have rights or that moral agents can't have duties towards them. That's the definition that I've seen on the web. I would somewhat dispute it. I have seen animals absolutely act as moral agents. I've seen them step in to right wrongs or to protect an animal of another species, to step in and try to protect them and give care. So I think I would dispute that animals are not able to be moral agents. All right, but onward. Animalism can be seen as an expansion of humanist values, but towards all other animal species, since we know that they are all able to suffer. All right, so in practice, animalists take into account the interest of animals, sentient non-human animals, in their daily life and when making lifestyle and political choices. Okay, so I like how they said sentient non-human animals. I love the phrase, and yeah, I know some people may not like it, but yeah, humans are animals too. And I love from the movie with Tom Cruise, Legends, where the main um, antagonist in there is talking to Lily, and she calls him an animal. And I love his response because it really is, even though it may have been from the wrong direction, it was definitely true.
You disgust me. You're nothing but an animal.
We are all animals, my lady. Most are too afraid to see it.
Okay, a bit harsh, but you kind of get the idea that we are all animals and we all share this world together. All right, so again, in practice, animalists take into account the interest of animals, sentient non-human animals, in their daily life and when making lifestyle and political choices. Of course, a spider, a fish, a rabbit, a chicken, or a human do not have the exact same needs and rights, you'd think, yet they all have an interest to live and not suffer. All right, so taking a chicken's life and interest to live and not suffer into account, there is no way an animalist can justify buying a broiler chicken meat, for instance. In this case, it is a moment of culinary satisfaction compared to a lifestyle or a lifetime of suffering. All right, so part of animalism, if you want to talk about a true zoocentric lifestyle, it means we take into the beauty and divinity and sacredness of all sentient beings, of all animal life on this planet. Okay, so it is logical for animalists to embrace compassionate lifestyles, such as reductionarianism, vegetarianism, or a plant-based diet. I myself, many of you know from watching my videos and radio show, I am a vegan. I guess you'd say a vegan elf. That's the lifestyle that I've chosen for myself, and I did it out of compassion. Most of my life I've been vegetarian or vegan, and been that way a very long time. And again, I knew that I did not require their deaths in order for me to live. Okay, activities such as animal racing or rodeos, where animals are treated as commodities for our entertainment, are clearly morally questionable. Animalists will consider including animal charities when donating their time or money. Animalists, just like humanists, generally prefer critical thinking and evidence, rationalism, empiricism, over established doctrine or superstition. Okay, and we're getting close to the end here. And animalism can be associated with animal welfare, animal rights, animal equality, animal liberation, anti-speciesism, in other words, just considering yourself as human, but considering others, and veganism. Animalism differs from veganism in that veganism prescribes to a very specific lifestyle and offers no variance. Okay, analytically, one cannot pretend to be a vegan if they make exceptions to the rules. Animalism is, on a much more broad scale, a statement of anti-speciesism and prescribes discussions on choice and ethics, allowing for a variance. As Wayne Simmons said, I love the term animalist. It is really effective, I think, and it describes what I want to work towards. I like it because it's positive. It's not anti-anything. It's proactive and uses positive terms. All right? So it means that within our spiritual realm, we include all living beings as something special and a right to life. Okay, so that defines animalism. Okay, let's take one quick look at how the world's major religions, what they say about animal rights, and then I'm going to talk about the Elven point of view. All right, the world's major religions are Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, and Judaism. And these are practiced by billions and billions of people around the world. All right, and in many of these, animals do play a significant role in their religion. But what role? How do they actually look at it? So let's do that. Let's take it one at a time real quickly. Buddhism. Buddhism is known to be a religion that practices and promotes peace for both human and non-human animals. Some even argue that Buddhism supports animal welfare because compassion for all living beings is highly integrated into the beliefs of Buddhism. And we've seen that there has been an extremely huge rise in people converting over to Buddhism. I would argue about it whether it's a religion or not, but definitely from a philosophical point of view, animals are considered very high on the list. Just as Christianity and Judaism have 10 commandments, Buddhism has the 5 precepts. The first precept says, do not kill or harm others. Okay, and most now think that that applies to animals as well as humans. All right, all Buddhists seek to be in line with the teachings of the Buddha, Gautama, but there are different interpretations, just like within Christianity. And it is very common for Buddhists to follow a plant-based diet. However, not all do. All right. The Mahayana tradition is more strictly vegetarian than other Buddhist traditions. In the Lankavatara Sutra, the Buddha is quoted saying, I have not permitted meat eating by anyone. I do not permit it. I will not permit it. His reasoning is stated in the same scripture. If meat is not eaten by anybody for any reason, there will be no destroyer of life. Pretty heavy stuff there, and that's something I strictly believe in as well. Okay, so, and again, but not all Buddhists believe that. All right. Okay, so let me see. The Buddha, one last thing, the Buddha said in the Dhammapada, all beings tremble before danger, all fear death. When you consider this, you will not kill or cause someone else to kill. All beings fear before danger. Life is dear to all. And we know that because they've done tests on animals that knew that they were getting ready to be killed, and they could actually detect the rise in certain hormones that come from fear. Okay. All right, Christianity. Christianity is practiced by billions of people and is the most popular religion in the Americas, Europe, and the southern half of Africa. Animal rights and welfare are heavily debated by Christians, especially in the United States and England. Okay, because the Bible goes on. They say, it says that let us make man in our image, and that he has dominion over all the other creatures of the world. Okay, and that is unfortunately a very common phrase taken from the Bible as a reason or excuse to exploit other living beings on this planet. I would argue, because unfortunately so much of the Bible has been misinterpreted. If one would take the time to study the Bible in its original Aramaic, we would find things like dominion actually meant, in this case, that to be servants of others, to be stewards of the world. It didn't mean dominion, to be dominant. It did not mean that back then. So unfortunately, a lot of people don't take the time to look back into it and see that. All right, so yeah, as in Peter Singhing's 1975 novel, Animal Liberation, he claims that the Bible's teaching about man's dominion was an impediment to animal rights, because again, it's how people interpreted that. All right, okay, now a lot of Christians definitely do believe that all creatures are God's creatures and that they should be taken care of. Christian vegetarianism is becoming more popular as people learn where their food comes from. Christian vegetarianism even align biblical values with their eating. Okay, where it says, in the beginning that God said that the fruit of the tree will be meat for you. Okay, moving on. Hinduism. Hinduism is a compilation of many traditions and philosophies. It's not just one organized religion. It embraces many different religious ideas and is sometimes referred to as a way of life instead of a religion. All right, but due to this mixture of religious ideas, there's not one single Hindu view on animal rights, much like other religions. Okay, now one of the big differences with the Hindu teaching is that they hold the belief that all living creatures have a soul, and that they are all part of the supreme soul. Kind of like what I say very often in Elvish, Ililakwain, which means all is one. Therefore, according to the Hindu teachings, all living creatures, both human and non-human, are respected similar to the Buddhist traditions. They expect every living being to be treated with kindness and respect. Okay, but that doesn't mean there aren't those that don't eat the animals anyway. Okay. All right, and Islam. Muslims believe that animals exist for the benefit of human beings, but that they should be treated with kindness and compassion. So that one feels that the animals are here for our use. All right. Okay, and last but not least, there is Judaism. And Judaism places a large amount, it's really interesting, a large amount of stress on the proper treatment of animals because they are seen as part of God's creation. That doesn't mean that they're vegetarian or vegan, but they at least do believe that there is some kind of compassion that should take place, and it is forbidden to be cruel to animals. Okay, right, because for example, according to the BBC, the Talmud, which is the main book, specifically instructs Jews not to cause pain to animals. And there are also several Bible stories which use kindness to animals as a demonstration of the virtue of leading Jewish figures. Okay, so while animal rights are important to most religions, only to a certain degree, and I guess it depends on how one interprets their particular religious texts. Okay, so in conclusion for the world's religions, major religions around the world believe to varying degrees that animals should be treated with compassion and respect. In the countries and cultures where these religions are practiced and animals are to be treated with respect, animals are still used as food sources and sacrificed for religious reasons. Now, Mohandas Gandhi said, "To my mind, the life of a lamb is no less precious than that of a human being. The more helpless the creature, the more that it is entitled to protection by man from the cruelty of man." I could hardly agree with him more on that. Okay, again, if their life is not necessarily taken for our growth and our living, why does it happen? Why does it have to happen? Okay, let's look at the Elven point of view. Okay, now I'm going to be talking mostly here about from the Tolkien canon. And for many of those who don't know, I'm going to be talking about a particular Vala, her name is Yavanna. And they're simply named the Valar. They're the powers of the world. A lot of people would call them maybe angels. Some would call them gods, but they're not. But they came here to this world to help it grow and complete the vision of Eru, of God, and let the world grow. Well, each one of the Valar, they had their own special, I guess, place in the world and the things that they're their specialties. The two greatest, of course, would be Varda and Manwë. But as far as the female work of the Valar were concerned, the one who was considered the second highest in the females was Yavanna. And it was meant Quenya for giver of fruits. And so a lot of people look at her as mostly of plants and trees. All right, because it said she was the one responsible for the growth of all fruits, but also of growing things of Arda. That wasn't just plants; it was plants and animals, and she cherished them all. And so, a lot of people who follow the Elven philosophy or Elven culture, spirituality, like myself, look to Yavanna because of her love of nature, of both plants and animals. And so you might want to, for those that are looking for a more zoocentric philosophy, this is meant just as kind of a seed to get you going, to go ahead and look into Yavanna, to see what she did and some of her history. Because a little bit here in the music of the Ainur, which was how the universe was created, Yavanna sang of branches of great trees that would receive the rain of Manwë and Urmo. And some trees sang to Iluvatar also. It was said that the elves taught the trees how to speak. And so Yavanna, for those that want to look deeper into it, she's a wonderful source for looking at a being who put everything she has into living things, both plants and animals. Well, today we're talking about mainly animals, so we'll go on from there. Okay, so as far as history goes, one of the groups of elves that had, and this is the one that I probably adhere to the most, would be the Sylvan Elves. All right, and it was, as one definition of them, is they were secretive, but lovers of the forest and animals. All right, so they cared very much for them. And I know that one of the things that I may hear from you is that, well, Tolkien said that elves hunted and they ate meat. And yes, most of the time I did hear about the elves hunting. It was hunting the fell beasts, those that were fighting against the good, so to speak, of the world. They were the evil creatures in Tolkien's writings that the elves hunted. And as far as the subject of meat, I've talked about this before. You can go back and look at a couple of my videos in the past couple of years where I talk about the elven diet. And that's one subject I touch on is the subject of meat, the word meat. And it's such a contentious subject because some people get so emotionally attached to it. Okay, we all can remember that Tolkien was one of the world's great linguists. And when he was writing these stories, it was very much from a very ancient style of language, even older than a lot of the medieval. It was more like original English, early English and early Finnish and so forth. And the word meat, according to the languages that Tolkien were using, the time that he talked about, so to speak, if you want to put it more into a human timeline, meat didn't mean animal flesh. Back in the type of writing that Tolkien was a linguist of, meat meant basically the food that was upon the table. Okay, it did not mean animal flesh. It could be the meat of the berries or the meat of the fruit, the meat of the walnuts. So it was a general term for the food that you ate, the meat on the plate, all right? It didn't actually become attached to animal flesh until just a few hundred years ago, and much later than what Tolkien's writings would have been representing. So again, I find that a loose definition when people, or reasoning when people use, well, elves ate meat according to Tolkien. Well, okay, what meat? All right. Well, for myself, everyone has to walk their own path. For myself, I will believe that it was plants. Okay, the meat of the plants, especially when we're supposed to consider all life sacred. Why would I kill something if I didn't require it? If I didn't require its flesh in order to grow mine. Okay, so that's one down there. So what else could I say? All right, a couple more things and we're done here. Elves considered animals so precious that they wanted to talk with all of them, which means elves recognized the sentient rights of all beings. Even according to Treebeard one time, he said, elves want to talk with everything. They just want to talk, which means that elves recognized the sacredness, the sentient within each being in there. How could we want to talk to something that had no soul, that had no ability to be able to talk to us? And one last note, okay, is elves, and this will be a fun debate if we ever want to do this, and I can do this live, because we will be doing more live shows here in the very near future. Elves did not have pets, at least according to Tolkien. Elves did not have pets. The only indication that we seem to have, and it was definitely not a pet, was of Huon, who was a dog. Okay, so as one person wrote here, the closest I can think of would be Huon, who was kept by Celegorm as a gift from Orome, and then later bonded with Luthien. And according to the text in the Silmarillion, the chief of the wolfhounds that followed Celegorm was named Huon. He was not born in Middle-earth, but came from the Blessed Realm, for Orome had given him to Celegorm long ago in Valinor, and there he had followed the horn of his master before evil came. All right. It can be debated by many that he was a pet or not, because we know that Huon was sentient, that he spoke 3 times throughout his life, and he made the choice who he lived with. There came a time when he left Celegorm and went to Luthien. So he was not a kept animal. He decided where he was going to be, and when he decided it was time to go, he left. All right, and then they've talked about one other thing, but sometimes in the Silmarillion, and this is a very important point, nightingales and other birds are mentioned around Melian, the Maya. Even in Menengarth, there were birds, so they must live among the elves. But here's the thing. They lived there because they chose to. Nowhere does it show that elves ever kept an animal in a cage or took their freedom away from them. Again, Huon was a fine example of, I don't like you anymore, I'm going to go live somewhere else. So elves, according to Tolkien, did not keep pets. Okay, well, I think that pretty much will do it here. I just wanted to kind of touch briefly on animal centrism and an animal or a zoocentric philosophy, and how elves might look at it. And that does take you into the philosophy or spirituality of what your diet would be if you consider zoocentric. And I appreciate the individual who who asked me to do this video, that this individual was also a vegan and believed in the sacredness of all animals. So thank you very much for the suggestion. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to final thoughts. And today is going to be an interesting one. But before I do, again, just want to let you know, you guys have thoughts on this? Please feel free to go ahead and put them in the comment section. I look forward to your comments. Let's be mature about it and have an open debate. And we can do that on the air. And if you have ideas for future shows, I've been getting plenty of them. I do appreciate that. The more the better. And I will try to meet the requests as they come in. All right, so let's go ahead and get into final thoughts. And today it's about how we build boxes around ourselves, how we put ourselves in boxes, how much humans love the box, just kind of like a cat does. Only what does a box have? It's just filled with walls. All right, so I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here and talk about boxes. All right, so in this world today, there is such a great or vast division that is occurring in part due to the use of language. Simple words can not only divide a people, but actually leads to violence, all in the name of their definition of a word. Now, there's a reason I'm talking about this today, because again, all of my videos, I try to have the point of leading to remembering who you are, whether that be elf or human or fae or otherkin. All right, so humans love boxes, but boxes have a major attribute to them, a very singular attribute that all boxes have. They have walls. Boxes build walls. Now, I don't care whether you call yourself Catholic, Christian, pagan, Jewish, Muslim, LGBTQ, straight, gay, doctor, lawyer, carpenter, enlightened, or ignorant. There's also victim boxes, boxes that are also imposed upon people because of abuse when they were younger, abuse when they're older. And society then labels them as victims, and the individual takes upon that box, kind of like how a cat does. A cat will go into a box because they can find some sort of comfort in it. But I also understand that these boxes, though imposed upon us by society, may actually give us a sense of belonging, a feeling like that we're all in the same boat together, feelings of being unique and special in a world that marginalizes so many today. But in the end, the boxes become a trap, obscuring our view of who we truly are. Now, all these categories I just gave, whether the kind of religion you are, or whether you're gay or straight, or enlightened or ignorant, or a doctor, lawyer, whatever it may be, they are simply attributes. They do not define who you are. Our son, when he had grown up, and I think I've mentioned this on another video before, he had gone off to the Coast Guard. And while at the Coast Guard, I think he finally came to terms of one of his characteristics or attributes. And one day he called home from his base and he let us know that he was gay. He was so nervous that day, thinking that we would deny him. But of course not. It didn't hurt us or affect us at all, except we were proud of him for having the courage to be able to come out and share with us something about himself. And over the next couple of years, he and I would talk when he would come home, and he would say, well, he himself was uncomfortable. Well, what am I? Am I gay? Or am I, what defines me? Am I a veteran because I was in the Coast Guard? Am I this? Am I Generation X or whatever, or millennial? What am I? And I remember telling him, I said, these are just attributes. You happen to be gay. You happen to have been a veteran of the military. You happen to be born of Generation X or millennial or whatever it was at the time. I said, those are attributes. Just like you have green eyes and brown hair or whatever the case may be. They are attributes. They do not define you. Within each cultural change comes new words or words that are arbitrarily redefined. And folks can become so passionate about the meaning of those words to the point of blindness, walls again, to the gift of debate, the gift of sharing one's viewpoint in a peaceful way. So many times this open debate has led to both sides learning from each other. But unfortunately today, people become so obsessed with their boxes, so obsessed with their words, that instead it leads to division, hardship, and violence. We all have our own paths to walk. Okay, and there is, if you want to have any category from yourself, there already is one. However you want to define this, you are singularly, sacredly, the children of the light. That is you. That is, if you want to have a box, even though that's just simply who you are. You are children of the light. You know, and then people might say, and I get it, they say, well, you chose the word elf. Okay, isn't that putting yourself into a box away from something else? And I can see where that actually could be true. But here's a wonderful thing about this. Okay, tools are tools until they're no longer useful. All right, words, it was described by Huang Po, a Zen master back in the, that would be the 9th century. And he said that words are really they're simply to inspire children, to encourage them to go upon a path, to find the path, and eventually forget about the words. An old Elvish phrase is, it's like the baker who has created the loaf of bread. When the bread is done, the pan is forgotten. You move on. Words are merely to inspire us, and then we move on. So many, most today, are still trying to identify who they are in a world so confused and are missing the one great fact. We are all equal but different. French, vive la différence. Celebrate the difference. But by constantly trying to identify yourself with what culture or society comes up with, the conformity of society, you miss the opportunity to view yourself for who you truly are. Your view is blocked by those walls that you have created with that box, blocking your sight of your true nature, one of walking starlight. You are all merely one, children of the light. All other categories at best are simply attributes. They don't define you. Well, I'm going to get ready to sign off here. And so I'm going to, just before the final sign-off, we're going to kind of play ourselves out here with a beautiful song, since we spoke of it earlier today, a song of the Vala Yavana, right? The giver of fruits, the nature Vala. And this is from the YouTube channel Moriana, a beautiful YouTube channel, wonderful Elvish songs on there. If none of you have discovered them yet, they're absolutely wonderful. And the name of this song in Elvish is called Avahata Eldegar. And the close meaning to that would be, I refuse to forsake the elves. Very beautiful. So if you want to go ahead and listen to that, and then we'll do our final sign-off.
Va
Well, thank you, Mariana, for that beautiful song, and I hope all of you will go ahead and take a look at their YouTube channel. Absolutely beautiful Elven music. All right, well, we're getting ready to sign off here, so I wanted to go ahead and let you guys know, please, in the description, let me know of any ideas that you would like to have for future shows. Maybe you would like to have some debates on a live show coming up soon, so let me know what you'd like to talk about and what you'd like to share. Okay, some things that are coming up for new shows here in the very near future, and thank you to everybody, all the listeners who suggested these. We're going to start a whole new series that we'll be doing every so often on Elven healing. And we'll be picking specific categories. All right, for example, I've discussed anxiety and depression in the past. We're going to talk about cancer. We're going to talk about autoimmune diseases like lupus and diabetes, and other lifestyle changes that one can make, but how we can heal and using energy healing as another example for the Elven Healing series. So if you have specific categories in there you'd like to talk about, you'd like to hear me mention, please let me know. As I said, I am a doctor, but I also believe in Elven healing as well, and these are things I have actually done in my medical practice. So if you have something in particular I'd like to talk about, let me know. We can do it on the live show. I can also do a show just on that. All right. Other things we're going to be talking about here in the future as well is on spirit animals and on rituals, things that, a lot of people would like to know about rituals. I'm not a big person into it, but I know that it is valuable to certain people. Again, a tool is a tool as long as it's useful. And we can talk about rituals and how to work with those and not become addicted or obsessed with them. And we're going to talk about Elven holidays. We're going to talk about more about the Maiar and the Valar. And one thing I thought was really interesting someone brought up is about paranormal experiences. What have you experienced with elves or fairies or otherkin? We're going to talk about paranormal experiences with them as well and how it may have changed your life or the way that you look at the universe. And I'm going to talk about also Elven evolution, how we came to be. All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about here in the near future. As always, please let me know what you think and what you would like for me to talk about. Okie doke. All right, again, as always, thank you for listening, my friends. And until we are together again, may you all be blessed by the elves. My name is Dr. Arendius Spindalelis, and I am the Elven Scholar. Namarie.